Hi, everyone, and Happy New Year. Welcome to our Digital Marketing Resolutions for the Roaring 20s webinar. We are going to get started, and we're excited to share our 2020 Digital Marketing Resolution Solutions with you today. For our Twitter fans, you can follow us live at NetElixir on Twitter. Here at NetElixir, we help retail brands find and acquire new customers online. Our #1 goal is to help brands own the search bar, and we do so by offering several solutions, including paid search, organic search SEO, paid social, including Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest, web analytics consulting, and conversion rate optimization, Amazon ads, and a full suite of e-commerce tech development services, including website migration. We work with some fantastic clients and partners, including our partners at Google, Microsoft, Bing, and UPS. And here are a few of the clients that we work closely with. Today, we are joined by NetElixir's Director of Paid Media, Manish Mohan, and our SEO managers, Angel Nieves and Silas Gossman. Thank you guys for joining us today.
Thanks, Heather. So let's jump right in. The first recommendation that we have for this year is to make your marketing efforts more targeted. And what you're seeing on the slide right now is a screenshot from a proprietary tool that NetElixir has built. It's called Elixir Insights. What we are trying to achieve through this tool is to help brands and marketers fine-tune their marketing efforts and focus on their high-value customers. Based on some research that we have done, we have typically seen that more than 50% of your revenues are generally coming in from the top 15% of your customers. These are your high-value customers. A high-value customer can be defined by various means. What we use here at NetElixir is the classic RFM modeling, which factors in the recency, frequency, and the monetary value to understand if a customer falls into that bucket. Once we do this, we try to give you more data points around how this high-value customer looks like. So what you're seeing on the screen are some metrics that you will have access to through our platform in terms of the number of orders that a high-value customer places over a certain period of time, the revenue per customer, and the days since the last order. The second part of the tool also shows you the time between two subsequent purchases. This becomes extremely powerful for every marketer because if you see that the average time between two purchases is 44 days, and for some reason over the last 3 months, that number has grown to, let's say, 50 days or 55 days. It indicates that your high-value customers are not coming back as frequently as you would like to. That then triggers another discussion. Have they switched to a competitor? Do they have an alternate choice in the market right now? Or is there something that you can do from an email perspective or any other channel that can possibly act as a reminder and bring them back? This data point is specifically developed using our tracking pixel. Any client that we engage with, we have a custom tracking tool that goes into their website. And from day one, it starts tracking every single visitor who comes to your website. For the sake of today's presentation, we are only showing you a high-value customer segment. As we dive deep into this tool, there are other segments such as moderate value customers and low value customers, some of which may not be a key priority for you. And hence, you may even decide to move your paid media dollars away from, let's say, a low value customer.
So moving on to the next conversion from the next digital marketing resolution. As part of 2020, you want to distinguish the pain points, if any, for your customer's path to purchase. A simple yet effective way to discover this would be to set up a customer purchase path funnel within Google Analytics for this example, or your preferred analytics platform. This will help you track the conversion path and effectively address any pain points that are driven by data. As a high-level example, you can see in the screenshot presented, shows that the cart page has the highest exit percentage compared to the other path to purchase pages. At about 43% of traffic proceeds to the billing and shipping page. Now, while you may think initially there is a problem here and that you may need to enhance your UX or your CTA, This is actually pretty common with cart pages, as customers tend to jump in and out of the cart page while shopping on your site. Again, with this setup, we can pick up insights on how customers are behaving and adjust accordingly if needed based on data.
Every engagement at NetElixir essentially starts with this framework. We call it the Gossman model. What we're trying to accomplish through this framework is, before we even get into campaign level details or channel specific strategies, it is more important to understand what your bigger business goals are. Anyone who is attending the webinar today, I would highly recommend to go back to the drawing board with this specific framework. You may be part of a very small department within e-com, or you may be responsible for the entire e-commerce operations of your company. It will still make sense to sit down with this framework and try to fill it out, let's say for the 2020 calendar year. The way we recommend doing this is that the goal should be quantifiable. It should be a specific number. Let's say, for this example, let's say your goal is to grow by 20% in 2020, and you want to do that at an overall return on investment of 5x. Now, once you have the bigger goal defined, the next step is to identify not more than 3 big strategies that will get you to that goal. And a quick caution here, what we have generally seen is people do get confused between strategy and tactics. They may seem to be the same in many scenarios. It's extremely important not to fall into that trap. Take a step back and make sure that the strategy, in most cases, is channel agnostic and has a set of tactics supporting it. And we'll give you some examples today. If you want to grow by 20% year over year, that growth can come from a lot of places. One possibility is that your customer base is growing. Let's say you are in an industry where the consumption is on the rise. So you expect a lot more new customers to fall into the demographic that you are catering to, and hence the overall market size is growing. The second possibility is, let's say your market is mainly stagnant and you don't expect a lot of new customers to come in the next 12 months. In which case you can still grow by 20%, but that might have to come from a competitor, in which conquesting becomes very important. These are some of the high-level strategies that we recommend starting with, and then identify some tactics to support it. One very popular strategy that we have seen become popular in the last 12 months or so is an omni-channel approach, where your local storefront also becomes a big part of your digital strategy. So in this case, one specific strategy would be, let's say you have around 10 stores. One particular strategy can be to own, let's say, a 10-mile radius in and around all the 10 stores. And once you identify that as a strategy, there can be tactics from different channels supporting it. On the paid side, an immediate strategy could be activating local inventory ads, so that when a customer searches for a particular product in and around your stores, they see an ad unit that also shows them the real-time inventory and encourages them to walk into the store and probably pick it up or even order it online. But the interesting component here is that the same strategy of a local dominance can have an SEO angle to it.
Yeah, following up with Manish on that too, we'll be able to utilize the local SEO component from Google My Business, such as utilizing post features, their new products feature, to kind of feature and push out what we were going to call kind of like organic ads within the knowledge panel of your Google My Business listing. Now, the Goss framework in this case is definitely heavily beneficial for presenting that type of information to either a C-suite or managers up top, just to present some buy-in from your department. And it allows resources to be allocated to the solution or the recommendations you're giving for this kind of strategy going forward. And we've seen this process, depending on your goals, probably should take no less than a day, like I said, depending on your goals. Just remember, it's important to involve key members into this process. You will most likely have multiple goals when discussing this framework internally. And essentially, the Goss framework can end up becoming, quote unquote, your monthly board meeting agenda that ends up driving all your performed work from your team or your organization. So some other tips would be to have kind of like an annual review of the goals. Usually they do not change, but the underlying objectives, strategies, and tactics do change. So it's clear to have that in mind. Objectives must be measured logically, like did this happen, yes or no? Those can be acceptable measurements, but not the best, just something to start off with. Responsibilities are made at a strategy level, but assignments are made at a tactical level. So sharing these results and progress with your members, and just remember to ask for assistance along the way.
Okay, we're gonna take a quick break and we're gonna give you guys a poll question. So for our first poll question, we'd like to know, does your company currently have an allocated budget to run experiments on your campaigns? Please take a moment to answer this poll.
Right? So based on the poll responses, it looks like most of you do not have an allocated budget for experimenting, which is what we guessed. And that pretty much follows into this slide as we talk about conquesting. Conquesting has been a pretty popular strategy in the paid media world for many years now. But one common thing that we see with many brands that we interact with is that conquesting has not been done in a structured manner. And what I mean by that is looking at conquesting as an always on strategy. There are instances when you know that there are certain seasons of the year when the competitive landscape might change and you might activate certain campaigns on a need basis. But what we are recommending instead is have a certain part of your paid media budget allocated exclusively for conquesting. A typical benchmark that we recommend is up to 5%. And this budget will always be used for conquesting efforts across different channels. It need not be restricted just to paid search. It can happen on paid social. It can happen on any other channel. The bigger thing here is not just having a budget, but internally being nimble enough to react to changes in the conquesting landscape. An example would be you might see that a competitor has launched a limited time deal on one of the popular categories in your space. First question becomes, internally, are you nimble enough to react to it and launch a counter offer either on the same brands or maybe something that is as good as it? Second, it's not enough if you are nimble enough. The teams that you work with, the agencies that you partner with, and the vendors that you work with also have to be nimble enough because everyone has to agree on the bigger objective. Once you have this approach ready, you activate certain ad hoc campaigns based on the competitor promotions. And to do this, you need to have a focused approach on monitoring the competitors' websites on an ongoing basis, and also their email campaigns to understand either their current promotions or if they're planning to do any upcoming promotions, you should be aware of that as well. Once you know what's going on, from a paid search perspective, what we recommend is launching two different campaigns. One is a dynamic search campaign, and the second is a shopping campaign, which are typically catered to a lower funnel customer. And since you're going after a conquesting campaign where the end customer might actually be looking for a competitor, you have to make sure that you are not doing any acquisition at this point. It has to be catered to a lower funnel customer and with a very specific promotional messaging. With that, we'll get into the next insight, which is specifically for Amazon. Every brand has been trying to solve the Amazon, mystery for the last so many years. Some brands have cracked it, but I'm pretty sure a lot of you are still figuring out as to what exactly should we be doing on Amazon. And the reason for that is, as a platform, Amazon has a lot of layers to it. When it comes to fulfillment, when it comes to handling customer reviews, returns, it could get very difficult. So based on our experience and being in this space for more than 16 years now, we decided to simplify it for you. And that is why we came up with this grid. The grid is based on the classic BCG metrics, where we try to segment out your approach or your strategy into 4 different boxes, and each one of them comes with a recommendation. In this case, what we have done is, on the x-axis, we are looking at the competitive intensity of the product that you are selling. And on the y-axis, we are looking at the margin per unit sold on Amazon, which helps you determine what your ROI on the investment is. And as you can see, there are 4 boxes that come up using this grid. The one that you see on the bottom left, the one in red, is the one where your margins are super thin and the level of competition on Amazon is very high. That is a disaster for failure. So this is a category that you should ideally stay away from, especially from an Amazon perspective. And the reason we are so strong on that particular view is, unlike paid search or paid social, the costs associated with selling on Amazon are different. You are probably paying anywhere between 12 to 18% of the revenue as the cost per sale. And hence you have to be very focused when it comes to the return on ad spend. The one on the top right is where the level of competition is low, and at the same time, your margins are really high. These could be your private labels, or these could be products where there are not many alternate options in the market. That is a great category to dominate on Amazon. And suddenly there are 2 other segments wherein if the competitive intensity is high, and the level of competition and the ROI is low, you may consider product differentiation. And on the bottom right, it's an opportunity to look at a price increase where you don't have a lot of competition, but at the same time, your ROI is on the lower end. So it seems complex at this point, but I think what has to be done is put all your products on a drawing board and use this grid to segment out your SKUs into these 4 buckets, and then figure out what you want to do with your Amazon strategy. Moving on, one of the popular topics that we have seen over the last 12 to 24 months is social media. And there has been a lot of hype around this, both on the organic social side as well as the paid social side. What we are recommending this year very specifically is, with all the engagement that your brand has generated or is planning to generate this year, how do you convert all that engagement into actual dollars? And from a paid social perspective, we wanted to share this framework, which has been tried and tested with every single client that we have worked with. And it essentially gives a lot of structure to your paid social initiatives. So if you look at this from left to right, we start by identifying what the objective is. Are you looking at a new customer who is brand new to your, to your brand, and you're trying to educate them and gradually move them down the funnel? Or are you talking about a retention campaign where this is someone who has previously converted on your website and now you're trying to bring them back? As we move to the right, there are other layers that get added on. The campaign objective becomes extremely important on the social platforms. Are you looking at a lead generation campaign? Or are you going after a lookalike audience? And this becomes a good connection into the first slide that we shared with you around high-value customers. Once our tool generates a list of high-value customers for your brand, you can use that to generate a lookalike audience on Google, on Microsoft, and on Facebook. And on Facebook, lookalike audiences typically outperform every other audience type. Once you identify the campaign objective, you then get into the ad set targeting, audience exclusions, and then the specific optimization techniques. What becomes more important on the paid social side is the kind of creatives that you play with. Facebook obviously offers a lot of different creative options, starting from carousel ads, single image ads. You have GIFs that are becoming very popular, video ads, slideshows, collection ads. It's an endless list. So it becomes very interesting to test out different combinations. Let's say a brand new customer who's never heard about you before, do they interact with a video differently than a single image ad? We keep testing all this, and we have a slide that talks about testing sometime later. So I'll get to this at that point.
Right. So addressing social and SEO and knowing the symbiotic relationship between social and SEO performance social content should really always be aligned with your overall brand theme and core SEO approach. So in other words, make sure your posts correspond with your organization's revenue and ranking goals, because really there is a very strong correlation between social shares and overall traffic. Social acts as an indirect ranking improvement factor due to A, increased traffic from social, and B, the fact that social sharing leads to an improved backlinking profile, which boosts authority. With this in mind, some to-dos to keep in mind are first, making sure you really optimize your bio info, so filling out all fields completely and making sure that information is both consistent with and very reflective of your organization's image. Another one, and this is very important, is to making sure you're posting regularly and maintaining a very structured schedule, which allows you to both A, generate, and B, fulfill audience expectancy, and therefore really help build a loyal traffic base. Another element to make sure you're incorporating is to really always use social share buttons for posted content, as this will help spread brand awareness and create brand advocates for your organization. And lastly, but certainly not least, making sure you're setting up the proper campaigns to really measure post performance for an ongoing basis so you can always repeat those recorded successes.
Implementing FAQ schema has definitely seen a big trend up in the SEO community, especially towards the end of 2019. So rolling into the 2020 year, you're going to want to utilize this tactic going forward in your decision. So implementing FAQ schema will definitely aid in your organic brand visibility within the search engine results pages, utilizing its rich results as we see in the screenshot presented. When you implement FAQ schema markup, you could potentially see the markup index pretty quickly, utilizing on-demand indexing within the Google Search Console. So what this process will typically look like is once you have your FAQ schema markup generated and posted into your HTML, submitting that specific page URL into Search Console will allow that URL to be put into a queue and potentially be indexed within the next few minutes, and you can see these results on your specific page as you see in the screenshot above. Keep in mind that implementing this markup requires some level of strategy, since you can experience potential impact on organic click-through rate. If the content is too informative in nature, it can create a situation where users get the answers they need entirely within the search engine results page. To combat this, the FAQ schema allows for the use of links within the answers to the questions. So what you're going to want to do is look for opportunities within your FAQ answers to link to other relevant pages on your site, and you can use this schema to drive organic traffic to more than one page in your site. This is actually a great way to use informational content to drive users to your product or service pages. Consider discussing these few questions with your webmaster or your subject matter expert to help determine where FAQ structured data may be applicable for your site. So you're going to want to ask, does your audience tend to perform research before making a transaction for your product or service? Is your brand considered or planned to be the industry leader for your niche and the information surrounding it? What is your unique selling proposition against your competitors? Articulating a question and answer around this could help share your brand authority and sway potential customers to buy from your brand versus a competitor.
Another important aspect for e-commerce retailers especially is always ensuring that your deep product pagination remains crawlable. Otherwise, it's easy for a significant level of products within a category or set of filters to be missed by crawlers. So a lot of important information as far as products you offer is missed by the bots. So in order to avoid this, if say your current pagination links are displayed like the first example there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, next, it's really best practice to change it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 51, 100 next. Because in this instance, 51 is now the midpoint link and 100 is the last link. Doing this and adding these additional links such as the midpoint and the last link really does help search bots find more pages from your deep pagination for products, making a lot more of your products available and visible for crawlers. Now, understanding that not all retailers use this pagination approach, and really it's quite common for people to use a load more button function approach. One hack for that, in order to make sure your load more button remains crawlable, make sure you're coding that button with HTML so the product content that was hidden in the source code will be visible to users when they click it, and combine this with a lazy loading technique so loading of the content doesn't interfere with the page load.
So smart shopping by far has been Google's most successful product over the last 2 to 3 years. And it has gained in prominence for any retailer who's into paid search advertising. Going into 2020, we do expect smart shopping to become a bigger part of your overall paid search strategy, and in many cases even replace your legacy shopping campaigns. However, we wanted to give out 4 specific recommendations on how we think this transition can be handled. The first aspect here is that a lot of brands have had the practice of looking at shopping campaigns from a brand and non-brand perspective. With smart shopping and the way the campaign operates, that structure no longer makes sense. So we have to transition out from that segmented approach, more of a blended campaign structure, where both brand and non-brand shopping queries will be triggered from the same campaign. For those of you who are still figuring out this transition or who are new to this, we recommend starting off with a hybrid approach, wherein you test out smart shopping only for select categories without making an entire switch to smart shopping. This will help you understand as to how the campaign is responding. And there might be certain nuances when it comes to determining what sort of a return on ad spend should you even set up for each campaign. It has to be also influenced by the margins that you have by category. And the final tip here, which we've tested for some of our large accounts, is when you start setting up the ROAS goals for the smart shopping campaigns, if you set a goal that is very difficult to hit, because smart shopping is a very successful product and it has a very wide reach in terms of displaying your shopping ads on Gmail, YouTube, and some other networks, the campaign might still hit those goals. But while it does that, what it might also do is bring back returning customers. So what will eventually happen is if you set a very difficult goal for the smart shopping campaign, your new to file customer pipeline might start shrinking. So if acquisition is a key objective that you have, we recommend setting a goal that is realistic, and maybe even use certain categories where those products act as gateway products. Maybe set a more conservative goal there, whereas some of your top performers can still be pushed to convert better using smart shopping. With that, we move into one of the bigger recommendations, which is again channel agnostic, is to have an always on testing philosophy. And as the title of this slide says, every week in the year can be pretty much looked at as a testing week. And we completely understand that this is easier said than done. But if you look at testing across different channels, we do believe that this is achievable. And the reason we feel this is important is that the customer behavior has been evolving at a rapid pace. And unless you are constantly testing, you might miss out on changing trends and might fall back on updating your strategy or even tactical elements such as your site based on consumer interest. So the important thing here is to have an always on approach. Start with a pretty specific goal for the test. Keep observing as to what is working. And the bigger thing is the moment you understand what worked or what didn't, push that learning back into your core campaigns or your core channels. And what we call this internally at NetElixir is the sandbox testing. It is influenced by the IT world, where if you have to do something on the website, you would do that in a staging environment and then move it on to the production version. Similarly, if you have a test that you want to do it in an isolated campaign, test it out, learn from it, and then move those learnings into all your other campaigns. And this might hold true for a landing page experiment, a campaign test, an ad copy test, or even a promotion test.
So the next one here, we're going to get more into A/B testing and how it can improve your business. So there's more than the points I have listed here, but these are the 5 points I wanted to briefly discuss and share with you guys over the next few minutes. So starting with number 1, improve content engagement, reduce bounce rate, increase conversion rate, higher values, and multifunctional use with A/B testing, and how it can increase sales. So with improved content engagement, this means that as you consider and create variables for your A/B tests, you can also create lists of potential improvements. The simple act of running just A/B tests invariably makes your final versions better for your customers. Reducing bounce rate and increased conversion rate. When you take the time to carefully craft 2 versions of your campaign, it's easy to see what works and what doesn't. A/B testing, 2 versions does take a little longer, but when done properly, it will definitely help you convert more leads. Now for higher value. So once you find the form or page or design that seems to be converting, it doesn't mean you should just leave it as it is forever. After you find a design that is converting well for lower end products or services, A/B test again with more refined version to increase conversions for your higher priced items and services. With just a little bit of tweaking and some diligent A/B testing comparisons, you might find that customers are actually willing to pay more for more expensive options and offer more perceived value. Now for a multifunction aspect here, sometimes it's the smallest tweak that makes the most differences in finding the combination that engages readers and actually converts visitors. For increased sales, your business is unique and has special characteristics that make it irresistible to target your audience. Using A/B testing to experiment with the market, you can use those characteristics to find an ideal combination for your customers, not only provide them with a better experience, but also breeds trust into your brand and confidence as well within your company. So when visitors begin to trust your company because of the value you provide, you increase your sales, and loyal customers are the natural result. So one way you can start getting into A/B testing is start using Google Optimize to experiment with A/B testing and multivariate testing even. It's free, easy to set up, has a built-in visual editor, and integrates pretty well with Google Analytics.
Right. All the strategies that we discussed today, all the key insights for 2020, none of this would make sense if you do not have a strong measurement model. There has been a lot of discussion in the market about attribution models. Google has done a phenomenal job of launching the data-driven attribution. More than 80% of the clients at NetElixir now follow a non-last click model for attribution. And that has come a long way in helping us realize better return on ad spend on paid search campaigns. And more importantly, understanding how exactly are customers interacting with your campaigns. There is a section within Google Ads now called Search Attribution that allows you to see how many ad clicks are involved per conversion and how many cross-device conversions go into your overall paid search landscape. Very useful and highly recommended to use. One other side to this is the Elixir Insights tool that we had shown you a quick snapshot of on the first slide. That platform allows you to get some cross-channel insights by looking at how exactly is the conversion path for a high-value customer different from a low-value customer. It's possible that in your cross-channel data or your analytics reports, you may see that Pinterest is not adding any value from a revenue perspective. But when you look at Elixir Insights, it's possible that the data might suggest otherwise, that most of your high-value customers actually start with Pinterest and then come back through other channels. This is where we recommend having a solid cross-channel reporting. And if you're working with different agencies for different channels, we highly recommend having one common call where all the agencies come to the room and discuss cross-channel insights without looking at each channel in a different silo.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Angel, Manish, and Silas, for providing us with your paid media and SEO insights. We're going to start taking questions. So if anyone has questions, you can submit them in our chat box. We're also accepting questions on Twitter. So just send us a tweet at NetElixir.com. I'm sorry, at NetElixir on Twitter. Okay, so while we're waiting for your questions, I would like to let everyone know about our 2020 New Year resolution for digital marketers ebook NetElixir has put together. This newly released ebook includes tips and hacks that our experts have put together to help your company grow and make 2020 a year to remember. So start the decade off with a winning strategy and download our New Year's resolution ebook at netelixir.com/resolutions. Okay, I see one question here from Lynn. Lynn would like to know, with smart shopping automating day-to-day campaign management, how important are feeds in this arrangement?
Great. That's a great question. And we hear this from a lot of our clients as well. You're right. A lot of the day-to-day optimization is effectively taken care of by the smart shopping campaigns. And that actually increases the dependency on feeds. And the reason I say that is in terms of reach and optimization, smart shopping in itself can do a great job. But in spite of having a great algorithm or a bidding technology, it might not even have any impact if the feeds are not good enough. And due to this reason, I think NetElixir has partnered with Feednomics. And every client who works with us on the shopping side, we essentially leverage Feednomics to optimize the feeds. And what becomes extremely important here is looking at conversion data and search query reports to understand how exactly our customers are searching for your products, and using these insights to fine-tune your product titles and other parts of the product feed.
All right, thank you, Manish. All right, our next question is, what is the best type of content to post on your social media profile?
I'll say there's really two categories that really perform well, and I would relate those to two items mentioned in the previous slide. That is building brand awareness and really developing a base of brand advocates. So for building brand awareness, I would really say any content you have that could be described as good press for your organization or your brand name. So really anything that demonstrates company successes, employee successes, owner or CEO successes, awards, or innovations you've made as a company. Think of it essentially as just good press. So it can really help develop that brand awareness, which is likely to lead to an increased awareness overall of your organization. The second, as far as helping build that base of brand advocates, two ways you can really approach this one. One is really asking yourself as a user, what gets you to click, like, and share on a post that you see for anything that you follow. So knowing that, taking that into account as far as the type of content you post, what is something that's likely to incite a lot of likes, a lot of shares, really help building those brand advocates and getting people to spread the word and backlink to your content and helping fulfill one of the goals of that, and that is to build strong backlinks for SEO authority, site authority, domain authority.
Okay, awesome. All right, we have time for one more question. So our last question will be, when implementing the FAQ structured data, does the content display differ from what is on the actual site page?
It's a great question. So the FAQ content actually must be an exact 100% match to the content that's displayed on that page on which the structured data is being implemented on. If you display different content in the schema than what is displayed on the page, this can result in actual manual penalty that you can see via Google Search Console. So Google requires that all the content marked up in the FAQ schema is also not used for advertising purposes, just to throw that in there.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining our first webinar of 2020. If you have any questions and would like to contact us, you can contact us via email at info@netelixir.com. Also, I just want to send you one more reminder. Just be sure to download our ebook at netelixir.com/resolutions. Thank you.